again, welcome everyone to today's webinar, which is 25 billion and counting, how to disrupt the marketing status quo. We have myself as the host, Majda Anwar, and we have two amazing digital pioneers, Dr. Debbie Gagish and Jeff Padowitz. For today, we've got an action-packed agenda for you. I can get it to go to the next. There we go. So we've already done some introductions for you guys. I'll be here managing the chat. If you have questions, feel free to put them in. We'd love to keep this as interactive as possible while providing you guys with the value from the IP we'll be sharing with you today. Also, if you have any questions or want any references, I'll be managing the chat, trying to make sure that we have a nice flow. We're going to go into something brand new. I'm calling it the secret sauce that Jeff's going to walk through. And then we'll talk about the two different topics that we had talked about in the example for the webinar, which was digital transformation, customer centricity, and strategic marketing operations. So with that, let's go ahead and get started.
Awesome. Thanks, Masha. And I'm so excited because for us, all the stuff that Debbie and I do, it's been a while since we've had a chance to do a webinar together. So we're really, really excited. So thank you so much for working with Adobe to set this up. So all the CMOs that I talk to, they think about really four major areas. They think about brand, they think about demand, they think about the customer experience, and they think about talent. And they're constantly playing with those dials. And within that world, marketers are trying to constantly scale, deliver value, and grow their respective organizations. So to be a growth marketer in today's world, you've got to be able to deliver value. And in order to be able to deliver value, you've got to be able to scale your organization. And that scale is not just about technology, it's about your personnel, your processes, and your ability to embrace customer centricity. So these companies that are driving those billions of dollars of revenue, they're doing it because they're becoming customer centric, but they're doing it operationally at scale. So within this 4x4 matrix, it's about thinking about the basic building blocks that you need to focus on so that you can go from scale to value to growth. I'm not going to go through every single cell here because we have a limited amount of time today. But in our poll, we're going to ask you roughly what quadrant you feel that you're in on this matrix. So if you're kind of down here in this section, you're pretty much in a foundational scaling point of view. You're trying to get your technology background right, your core set of team. You're focusing on your ICP, your segmentation. You're really getting RACI charts in place for your marketing organization. And lead management and campaigns is your preeminent focus as you're trying to fill the top of the funnel. When you move up into this quadrant up here, which is you're driving more towards aspirational but still scaling, you've gotten the building blocks down, but now you're really able to start comparing yourself to other best-in-class organizations. You're able to start marketing with precision because you're getting much better at data handling. You're getting much better visibility into how well your tactics are performing. You are starting to partner with sales to drive bookings and revenue, and you're really strengthening your brand voice. This quadrant over here, when you're starting to transform and break through, you're really able to start synthesizing all the different things that marketing does across the enterprise so that you get an end-to-end view of the customer. You have cross-functional analytics and KPIs when you're making data-driven decisions. You start to activate the board in order to be able to advocate and grow the business on your behalf. And then finally, in this quadrant up here, you're really becoming strategic. The equity that you've built in your brand and your company are leading purpose. So you have customers and partners and a greater wide community you're advocating. So your marketing team grows beyond the walls of your enterprise and organization. You're becoming a true growth marketer who delivers ROI. So we're going to take a quick minute and we're going to ask you guys in the poll now, where do you think you are?
You guys can put your answers in the chat.
Yeah, are you in quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, or quadrant 4? Okay, looks like we have a lot of ones, Masha, which is great. And you know, many organizations are here, and that's okay. Getting the building blocks to build a strong demand generation organization that can deliver repeatable, predictable, and scalable pipeline and revenue is a great place to start. And so we're going to talk a little bit more now about how these activities connect into a better customer experience and the critical role that marketing operations plays in really activating this first quadrant. And Deb's going to talk more about that as well. Next slide, Nasha. So in any business, you know, we do get caught up with systems, people, technology, campaigns, leads, advertising, analysts, all those kinds of things. Yes, they're all important, but fundamentally, it still is about relationships. And it's the relationship that marketing has with its own company, with sales and its stakeholders. And it's also the relationship that your company has with its customers. And the strength of those relationships are going to have a direct correlation on your ability to scale and get out of that first quadrant and grow revenue. So if you're up here where you have a poor company relationship, marketing is typically viewed as a cost center. It doesn't have a lot of authority or credibility within the organization. You are typically being pressured to reduce your budget, reduce resources, and you're missing targets. You have higher turnover. When you have a poor company relationship, you tend to have a poor customer relationship because you're focused on treating most of your customers as a transaction. You're obsessed with getting leads and things that fill the top of the funnel. It's a very transactional based approach, but you're not investing in the customer themselves. When you can start focusing in on the customer, starting with your current customers, which is the opposite from many demand gen marketers who are obsessed with getting new logos in the door, but actually the best way to grow and scale your organization is to grow your current companies first. But if you build with better customer relationships, that's going to finally then lead to a better company relationship. So it goes in full circle. Next slide. So the approach to do this, to build better customer relationships, to scale, to get out of quadrant one, to drive billions of dollars of revenue, is to stop thinking of your funnels as a transaction and view them in its entirety life cycle. It's an infinity loop, without beginning, without end. It's almost like a lazy river. If you guys have ever gone to a resort, you know, you're just kind of going around, you can get on and off, but it keeps flowing and flowing. Well, your customers are doing the same thing. It's not just about getting them to the initial transaction and closing the deal. It's all the key things that you're doing with the customer as an organization after that deal closes. How well you onboard them, how well you deliver value, driving adoption of your products and services, whether or not your customers are feeling they got a good return from their investment in you. Will they buy again? Are they repeat purchasers? And then finally, are they advocating on your behalf? And many marketers spend a disproportionate amount of their resources and their technology and their budget on the left side on acquiring new clients. And don't get me wrong, we all want new clients, and that is important. But for many of us, even if we're not in a software subscription model, we have a decent amount, if not a majority of our revenue coming from our existing customer base. And so if we redistribute and rethink how we're doing marketing, where we're activating the customer base and we're spending more time here, that's how you start to scale, because you already paid for the acquisition cost one time. And so now you're beginning to scale and grow that. And then Deb makes a great point where it's not even about marketing versus sales anymore. It's marketing and sales as one revenue team. Even if they're not literally reporting to a chief revenue officer, they still work together to chase the number and work on it together. Next slide, Masha. So for many of you that are in quadrant one, you're probably still using funnels. Now look, in full transparency, we use funnels at the Pedowitz Group too. I mean, it does help us forecast pipeline demand and measure some things, but we also take a more expansive view. It's not just about the funnel, it's about all the other things that we have to do to serve our customers and grow. So you don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's just more about thinking of a more holistic way to treat your customer as a relationship, not just as a transactional number. And when you do that, your focus is not going to just be about the things that you have to do as a marketing department. It's going to be the things that your customers want. You're going to be focused on constantly working with the client year after year after year, regardless of where they are, not just to get them to the contract. You're going to be focusing on delivering customer lifetime value, not just building up throughput in your funnel. You're going to be focused on all the different buying centers in the mix within your clients, not just on an initial person where you get lead source or first touch or last touch. Attribution modeling has moved way, way beyond that now in today's modern marketing landscape. And then finally, your campaigns are really much more pull-oriented because they're throughout the life cycle of the customer. They're not just pushing things onto people to move demand. And finally, managing your customers is not just marketing's job or sales job. Next slide, Ashley, please. This is really about reminding us that we all play a role, even in awareness and consideration. It's not just marketing's job to be able to go find that customer. Everybody in the company that has a revenue or customer facing function can play a role. And so as you start to move from scale to growth within your marketing organization, you're going to recognize that you work together with your revenue teams on all the different activities that you need to do within marketing to embrace your customer, not just within marketing, of course, across the entire enterprise. So to do all these things, of course, it's really important to have an operational tempo and a cadence. And I'm going to pass it off to my good friend and partner, Dr. Debbie, who's going to tell you all about it.
Great. Debbie, you're on mute.
Sorry. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for the handoff. And you're right. It's great to be able to do something with you and share some IP. So let's just back up for a moment. And again, one of the things that Jeff mentioned early in this call was that if you think about what's on the CMO's plate today, it is this focus on customer centricity, and that is a company-wide initiative, very typically where marketing plays a key role. It's also about driving revenue, and there's hardly any B2B organization anymore, or B2C organization, where the CMO does not have a lot of pressure to be actually contributing to growth and to revenue of the organization. And then finally, digital transformation is also firmly on the CMO's plate. And if you think about it, digital transformation is the enabler of the customer centricity, which drives the revenue. So what I want to spend a few minutes talking to you about as you think about your evolution as a marketing organization, I want to talk to you about strategic marketing operations and how, in a way, it is its own secret sauce, because CMOs that have strategic marketing operations are those CMOs who can actually put the numbers on the board with credibility. So Majda, if you go to the next slide. So in my most recent book called From Backroom to Boardroom, I talk about strategic marketing operations. And again, it's like the marketing operations leader is the wing person of the CMO. They are the person that helps that CMO be all they can be to get that seat at the table and have that financial credibility. And so I started doing research around marketing operations models probably around 2016, 2017. And here's where I landed. I think in the early days, and maybe a lot of you are here, given that a lot of you were ones on the value and business maturity scale, this is where you're using technology to be efficient and effective. You're using the technology well, and you also are doing the right things. And at that efficient and effective stage, that is such a baseline that's required to get into these strategic areas where marketing can play a very different role in the organization. And I did skip unaware. Some folks may believe that people don't know about marketing operations. I think just about everybody knows about marketing operations these days, but it does happen every once in a while. But if we take a look at the strategic elements, we take a look at what it takes to get revenue, what it takes to become a customer-centric organization. And then the next generation is really what we're seeing, where you take marketing ops and you take sales ops and maybe even customer success ops, and you blend all those together. And we typically see things like revenue ops in that next generation. But like a lot of things, if you think about your journey through digital transformation, it's necessary in order for you to become that revenue organization, not the pens and mugs department. And it is that baseline that really helps you become customer centric that Jeff was just talking about. So Within this framework of a marketing operations model and thinking about how it helps you take that journey of evolution and maturity, one of the most important elements on that journey is having a marketing operations leader that has all the right stuff. So one of the things that I talk about in my book are the 6 major qualities or characteristics of a marketing operations leader. And so let me share these with you. And I love this term button pusher. I've used that a couple of times in some presentations. And I know that whenever I talk about marketing ops being button pushers, I always get huge pushback. They really don't like that term. But what I'm seeing in organizations that have deployed strategic marketing ops is that they really go from being button pushers to business leaders. And that kind of forms a framework for everything that happens within marketing operations. We see successful MOPS leaders. They're not the tech geeks. They really are digital visionaries. As a matter of fact, in a recent survey that I saw, the majority of leaders of marketing ops were not even from necessarily a heavy duty IT background. We see marketing ops leaders who are driven and are passionate, not just about data, but about the insights that can be gleaned from that data. We see successful marketing ops leaders going from business as usual. Typically, when I meet a head of marketing operations, they're not there just to keep the status quo. They really are change agents. And we see them moving from being hiring managers to team and skill builders. And probably everybody on the phone right now is all part of the great migration, where you've got employees and it's hard to find people, and it's really hard to find talent. There's a huge talent war going on right now. So we see successful marketing ops leaders really have the ability to attract talent through the cool things that they do in marketing ops, and they build that talent. So they are skill builders. And finally, and this is so important in today's modern marketing organization, we see a successful marketing ops leader who is not just working in the silo called marketing ops, but they act a little bit like Switzerland. They are a master at being a cross-functional facilitator. So as we take a look at your evolution and your maturity from, being 1 on that maturity scale all the way up to a 4, ensuring that you have a strategic marketing ops organization and a successful marketing ops leader is part of that secret sauce. So Majda, back to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jeff and Debbie, for that introduction. I did want to take a couple minutes for questions. So I think the first question that I know that comes to my mind, Jeff, going back to the customer loop, I know anytime when you show that and we're seeing sales and services and marketing overlap, how does that play in terms of like owning the customer? When that's being implemented across an organization, what are some challenges that organizations face when they look at that ownership of the customer across the loop?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, Masha. I mean, in the truth, the customer owns their own journey. The customer owns the customer. So it's a shared responsibility within companies to serve the customer and to be centric. So Deb talked a lot about marketing ops today. That's a strategic function, but one of the things that her and I are seeing a lot more is revenue operations, which combines marketing ops, which is, as Deb just shared, so critically important, but it also blends it in with sales operations, customer operations, partner operations. And these are also typically the customer facing and or revenue generating arms. The revenue operations then can be a strategic arm across the company that really operationalizes and allows the company to serve the customer better. It gives you a 360-degree view of the customer and breaks down some of those territorial silos, I guess, that you might get otherwise as each group tries to figure out who's supposed to own the customer. And without getting too much on tangent, just to even mention something like AB, ABM, ABX, whatever you want to call it, organizations go wrong when they think it's supposed to be a marketing-led initiative or something that sales does, or it's a tool. It's a strategy. It's a strategy about engaging your customer at a strategic level where sales and marketing work together. So really a lot of what Deb and I are talking about today are working together as a team, one team, regardless of what your org structure says and who reports to who. You have to have a customer-centric mindset.
Let me add to that, Jeff, a few things. First of all, whenever we work with an organization and we see that sales and marketing are in completely different universes, we know there's going to be a problem. At the same time, when we see companies begin to evolve and mature and they really are becoming customer-centric, we find that everyone trying to get that one view of the customer is a glue that binds them together in a way that nothing else does. And once a company has adopted that customer centricity, to Jeff's point, that's where we see these revenue operations, which again, part of revenue operations is being customer-centric in a way that having silos does not achieve. And number two, of course, being more operationally efficient. And so it's part, the goal of the company, what they're trying to achieve, and then having the operations organization that actually helps them achieve that vision.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that was great input, Dr. Debbie. And we're definitely seeing that growth of that revenue operations function, under that chief revenue officer. So, all right, we have another question. I think this question comes up all the time as we are in a super fast-paced market, and the question is, how long does this take? I have to generate revenue yesterday. So when we're talking about transforming from, either funnel centric to customer centric, or being able to, have that seat at the revenue table, how long does it take?
To be honest, it's there's a lot of work that's required with change to truly become a customer-centric, transformative organization. And Nash, we're seeing anywhere from 24 to 48 months in many organizations to make a meaningful change. That being said, in today's day and age, there isn't a business executive alive, Debbie and myself included, that want to wait 24 months for something to happen. So within that, you still have to break it down to literally what can you do in month 1, month 2, month 3, month 4. And you might not be delivering revenue per se in month 1, but there are things that you can be doing surgically with purpose that are going to start moving the needle, build credibility without over investing, while you buy time for some of your larger plays to kind of develop.
And I will say that people can do it faster now than they could 2 or 3 years ago. And part of the reason for that is that there's so many models and people have experience in parts of these transformations. It's not like, 10 years ago where you had never seen or been through anything like that. So we are seeing transformations happen at a faster and faster rate every day because there's so many great examples and best practices out there.
Awesome. Well, we've got about 5 more minutes in our session today. Wanted just to ask if anyone had any more questions before we just have one more slide to discuss before we end for today. Also, to clarify, yes, everyone will be receiving the slides from this deck. So seeing ownership across the customer loop, the maturity model, all of that great stuff is available to you. You'll get that in the follow-up emails post-webinar. All righty. Okay, great. So we've got a question around, from Corey. Love your content around revenue marketing origination structure. What do I need to look for in an ops leader?
Is it for marketing ops, Corey, revenue ops? Because there are some differences between the two.
Marketing, yeah.
Marketing ops. Deb, you want to take that?
Yeah. It really is a lot of the characteristics that I just talked about. Typically you don't want a marketing ops leader that just has their head buried in the technology and is just a total tech geek. You want this person to have an understanding of business because they wield a lot of power because they can use technology to create results. And so you really want them to have some business acumen, and you really want them, of course, to understand marketing, and then be able to use the technology in such a way that you can get those wins much faster. So it's a very interesting set of characteristics. That's a little bit like a purple unicorn, as we call them, but they are out there. Thank you. And thank you for the comment about the revenue marketing content.
Yep. So a Rev Ops leader versus a marketing ops leader. A Rev Ops leader typically has a broader skill set. So like marketing ops, they should also be analytical and data driven, but they should have a stronger familiarity with customer and or sales operations. Preferably they had some kind of commercial level experience within their career, working in sales or working in account management or working in customer service operations. So they got a broader purview than just marketing. They're working with systems beyond MarTech. So they're working with sales tech and other types of customer service types of applications. Strong reporting capability, organizational skills, management skills. And I would say in particular for a strong VP of Revenue Ops, highly collaborative and change oriented, because this is a role that you're really going to be working and advocating with many different departments across the organization. That doesn't make marketing ops or ops leader any less strategic, but marketing ops does tend to work a little bit more within marketing and then also support sales, but it doesn't necessarily cut across as much of the organization as a revenue ops leader does.
That's true. And just to further clarify, a Rev Ops leader has marketing ops and sales ops at a minimum reporting to her, and sometimes also customer operations or customer success ops.
Mm-hmm. Great. All right, guys. So we've got, thank you so much, Jeff and Dr. Debbie, for your time. As a reminder, thank you everyone for attending. If you haven't already, both Jeff Pedowitz and Dr. Debbie Gagish's Amazon best-selling books that go over a lot of these concepts in detail are at your fingertips. We'll make sure that you have those free downloads. They are downloadable to your Kindle as well as the PDF. So post-workshop, if you haven't already purchased these, we're giving them away for free as a thank you for attending.